John Carter stood by the large window in his quarters, looking at the stars. The Galactic Council space station hung in orbit around a neutral planet, far from Earth, and even farther from the homeworlds of most other species. John straightened his dark blue uniform and checked his reflection one last time. Today was important. Earth needed the mining rights agreement to pass. 5 years as Earth's top diplomat, the Galactic Council had taught John patience. Humans were still newcomers here. Most alien species had been part of galactic politics for thousands of years before humans figured out faster-than-light travel. They still looked at humans as children, as weak beings who needed protection. John knew better, but his job wasn't to correct them. His job was to get what Earth needed through talk, not force. Ambassador Carter, the council meeting begins in 10 minutes, said Lisa Reynolds through the communication system. Lisa had been his assistant for 3 years now. She was smart, efficient, and the only other human on the station right now. "Thank you, Lisa. I'm on my way," John replied, picking up his digital tablet with his notes. The hallways of the station were built to fit many different alien forms. Some needed more space than others. Some needed different air mixtures. The main council chamber was the only room where all species could meet without special equipment. John nodded politely to a group of Meridian delegates, their blue skin and 4 arms marking them clearly among the crowd. The council chamber was huge, with seats for over 200 different species arranged in rising circles around a central speaking platform. John took his seat in the human section, nodding to the representatives on either side of him. Elder Zorax, the ancient leader of the council with his 4 wise eyes and gray skin, called the meeting to order. Today we continue discussions on resource sharing in Sector 7, specifically the asteroid belt in Earth's solar system. John listened carefully as different representatives spoke. Most were fair, acknowledging that Earth had rights to the resources in its own system. But Ambassador Vrax of the Centauri Imperium clearly wanted more. Vrax stood tall, his hard exoskeleton gleaming under the lights. The Centauri were known for their physical strength and their pride. The humans sit on vast resources they can barely use themselves. Vrax said, his translator making his clicks and hisses into words. Their technology is primitive. They should be grateful for our help in mining their asteroids. When it was John's turn to speak, he walked calmly to the center platform. The Earth Alliance appreciates the Council's interest in cooperation. We are willing to allow limited mining operations in our asteroid belt by Council members, with fair compensation and safety protocols in place. However, we must maintain primary control over resources in our home system. Vrax made an angry sound that the translator didn't catch. This is unacceptable. Humans are being selfish with resources they cannot fully utilize. John kept his voice even. We are developing our mining capabilities quickly. Within 10 years, we will be able to... 10 years. Vrax interrupted. The Centauri could extract those minerals in 2 years. Your slow progress holds back the entire council. Ambassador Vrax, John said firmly, Earth respects the council, but we have sovereign rights too. It happened so fast that security didn't have time to react. Vrax leaped from his seat, crossing the distance to the center platform in seconds. He swung his ceremonial staff, meant only as a symbol of his position, directly at John's face. The metal edge caught John across the cheek, splitting his skin. Blood dripped down John's face. The chamber went completely silent. Violence in the council was forbidden by the oldest laws of their confederation. Even Vrax seemed shocked by his own action. Security forces moved forward, but John raised his hand to stop them. He didn't touch his bleeding face. He didn't raise his voice. He simply looked at Vrax with calm eyes that suddenly seemed much older, much harder than before. Ambassador Vrax, John said quietly, though in the silence, everyone could hear him. I accept your passionate response to our position. However, I feel obligated to inform you that by the Council's own laws, you have now initiated a formal challenge. The Council chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates from 200 species all spoke at once. Some stood up in shock. Others called for immediate punishment for Vrax. The Centauri delegation protested loudly, saying their ambassador had been provoked. John Carter remained calm. He pulled a white cloth from his pocket and pressed it against his bleeding cheek. The cut wasn't deep, but it would leave a mark. He noticed Lisa Reynolds looking at him with concern from the human staff area. He gave her a small nod to show he was okay. Silence. Elder Zorax's voice echoed through the chamber, amplified by the room's systems. The noise died down quickly. No one argued with Elder Zorax, the oldest and most respected member of the council. Ambassador Vrax, Zorax said, his 4 eyes fixed on the Centauri. You have violated our most sacred law. Violence in these chambers has been forbidden since the founding of the council 10,000 years ago. Vrax's facial membranes fluttered. The human was being unreasonable. Silence. Zorax said again. There is no excuse for what you have done. John stepped forward. If I may speak, Elder Zorax. The elder nodded, surprised by the human's composure. As the injured party, I have the right to choose how this matter is resolved, John said. His voice was quiet but carried clearly through the chamber. I have invoked the formal challenge, as is my right under council law. Murmurs spread through the chamber again. The formal challenge was an ancient custom, rarely used in modern times. It allowed for personal resolution of disputes through ritualized combat. Vrax made a sound that his translator turned into laughter. You wish to face me in combat. You, a soft human, against a Centauri warrior. John looked at him steadily. That is my right. Elder Zorax looked troubled. Ambassador Carter, please reconsider. The formal challenge is indeed your right, but there are other ways to resolve this. Ambassador Vrax could be censured, his voting rights suspended. With respect, Elder, John interrupted gently. I have made my decision. Zorax sighed. Very well. According to our laws, the challenge will take place tomorrow at the first rotation. The council is adjourned until then. As the delegates filed out, many cast curious glances at John. Humans were known as diplomats and traitors, not warriors. Most believed John had made a terrible mistake. Lisa hurried to John's side as he left the chamber. Are you insane? She whispered urgently. Vrax has fought in 17 formal challenges. He's killed 14 opponents. I know his record, John said calmly. Then why are you doing this? We could file a formal complaint, get the mining rights automatically approved as compensation, and show the entire council that humans run from fights. John shook his head. We can't afford that reputation out here. They entered a lift that would take them back to the human quarters. When the doors closed and they were alone, Lisa spoke again. John, be honest with me. Can you actually win this? For the first time, John's diplomatic mask slipped a little. A small smile appeared on his face. Lisa, there's something you should know about my background. In his private office, Elder Zorax was reviewing files on his screen. He had requested John Carter's complete record from the council archives. Most of it was standard diplomatic information, education, postings, achievements. But there were gaps, strange gaps that made Zorax curious. He pressed a button on his desk. Connect me with Earth Central Intelligence, he said. I need the full, unredacted file on Ambassador John Carter. Security clearance Zorax Alpha 9. The screen flickered, then displayed a new file. As Zorax read, his 4 eyes widened in surprise. The file contained military records that had been hidden from the council. Before becoming a diplomat, John Carter had been Major John Carter, commander of Earth's elite special orbital forces. His missions remained classified, but his combat record showed over 50 successful operations against superior enemy forces. Interesting, Zorax murmured. Very interesting indeed. John Carter sat in his quarters, eyes closed in deep focus. His diplomatic uniform hung neatly on a rack nearby. Instead, he wore a simple black training outfit that revealed a body far more muscular than his loose-fitting diplomatic clothes suggested. Lisa watched from the doorway, still processing what John had told her. 15 years in Special Orbital Forces, she said slowly. Fighting in the Proxima conflict, leading the defense during the asteroid belt piracy crisis. You never mentioned any of this. John opened his eyes. It wasn't relevant to our diplomatic work. Wasn't relevant. Lisa shook her head in disbelief. All this time, I thought you were just another career diplomat. I am a diplomat, John said. That's my job now. That's my purpose. The other skills, they're just insurance. A chime sounded at the door. Lisa pressed a button to open it. Elder Zorax stood there, all four eyes blinking in the brighter human lighting. Ambassador Carter, Zorax said, may I speak with you privately? John nodded to Lisa, who reluctantly left the room. When the door closed, Zorax moved closer, studying John with new interest. I accessed your complete file, the Elder said without preamble. The parts Earth didn't share with the Council. John showed no surprise. I assumed you might. You're not just a diplomat. You were a warrior, one of Earth's best, according to your record. John rose to his feet, moving with a fluid grace that seemed different from his usual careful diplomatic movements. I served my planet, yes. Now I serve it in a different way. Why hide this information from the Council? Zorax asked. We didn't hide it, John said. We just didn't advertise it. Earth wanted to be seen as a peaceful member of the galactic community. Zorax's upper eyes narrowed. Even now, most humans serving in diplomatic roles throughout Council space have similar backgrounds. Military veterans serving as ambassadors and attaches. Is this a deliberate policy? John smiled slightly. Earth has learned from history. The best diplomats understand the reality of conflict. They value peace because they know the alternative. And they can defend themselves if needed, Zorax added. If needed, John agreed. Zorax moved to the window, looking out at the stars. The Centauri are physically superior to humans in many ways. Their exoskeletons can withstand tremendous damage. Their strength is 3 times that of a human. Vrax specifically is a decorated veteran of their planetary wars. I'm aware of Centauri physiology, John said, and I've studied Vrax's fighting style from recordings of his previous challenges. Zorax turned back to John. You truly believe you can defeat him? I don't enter fights I don't think I can win, Elder Zorax. The Elder was silent for a moment. The Council has underestimated humans, I think. We saw your peaceful approaches, your willingness to compromise, and mistook it for weakness. A common mistake, John said. One that humans themselves have made throughout our history. If you defeat Vrax tomorrow, it will change how the Council views humanity. John nodded. That's part of the point. After Zorax left, Lisa returned to find John going through a series of stretching exercises that seemed more like a dance than preparation for combat. That doesn't look like any fighting style I've seen, she said. It's an ancient Earth practice called Tai Chi, John explained. It teaches balance and control. Important principles when facing a stronger opponent. You really think you can win, don't you? Lisa asked. John stopped his movements and looked at her. Lisa, there's something you need to understand about humans. Throughout our history, we've often been physically outmatched by predators or enemies. We survived and thrived not because we were the strongest, but because we were the most adaptable. And how does that help against Vrax tomorrow? John smiled. Because while Vrax is thinking about how much stronger he is than me, I'll be thinking about all the ways strength can be turned against itself. The challenge arena was ancient, dating back to when the Council races first met thousands of years ago. It was a simple circular space 30 meters across, with smooth stone floors and high walls. Seats rose in rings around it, enough for hundreds of spectators. Today, every seat was filled. News of the Human Ambassador's challenge had spread quickly throughout the station. John Carter stood in the preparation room, breathing slowly and evenly. He wore only the simple black pants required by tradition. His upper body was bare, revealing a physique marked with old scars that told their own stories of past battles. The council hasn't seen a challenge this well attended in over 50 years, Lisa said from the doorway. Everyone wants to see the crazy human who challenged a centauri. Let them watch, John said calmly. It's important they see this. Lisa handed him a small earpiece, standard diplomatic translator. The council approved it since Vrax will be using his natural armor. John nodded and placed it in his ear. Any word from Earth? They receive our message about the situation. The response was strange, though. Lisa checked her tablet. Just 2 words. Protocol Omega. John smiled slightly. That's all I needed to know. What does it mean? It means I have full authority to handle this situation as I see fit. John rolled his shoulders. It's time. When John walked into the arena, the crowd grew quiet. Many were seeing a human without the concealing diplomatic uniforms for the first time. Some whispered about how fragile he looked compared to the armored centauri waiting on the other side. Vrax stood tall and confident, his exoskeleton gleaming under the arena lights. The natural armor covering his body had been polished to a shine, and the ridges along his arms and legs looked sharp enough to cut. His translator hung at his throat, ready to convert his clicks and hisses into words all could understand. Elder Zorax stood at the center of the arena. We gather today for a formal challenge, invoked under the ancient laws of the Council. Ambassador John Carter of Earth has challenged Ambassador Vrax of the Centauri Imperium, following a violation of Council peace. Zorax looked at both combatants. The rules are simple. Until submission or incapacitation, no weapons except those that are part of one's natural biology. He glanced meaningfully at Vrax's sharp exoskeletal ridges. Does either challenger wish to withdraw? Zorax asked, as tradition required. The Centauri do not withdraw, Vrax said, his translator making his clicking sounds into words. John simply shook his head. Very well, Zorax said. You may begin when the tone sounds. May wisdom guide your actions. The elder moved quickly from the arena. A moment later, a deep tone echoed through the space. Vrax didn't waste time. He charged forward with surprising speed for his size, clearly intending to end the fight quickly. His arms extended, the sharp ridges aimed at John's unprotected chest. What happened next shocked the watching council members. Instead of backing away, John moved toward the attack. At the last possible moment, he shifted to the side, his hand grabbing Vrax's extended arm and using the centauri's own momentum to pull him off balance. Vrax stumbled forward, his attack finding only empty air. Before he could recover, John struck precisely at a joint in the centauri's exoskeleton, a vulnerable point few non-centauri even knew existed. Vrax made a hissing sound of pain and spun around, now more cautious. The watching crowd murmured in surprise. The human was not fighting as they expected. You have some skill, Vrax acknowledged. But skill alone will not save you from superior strength. John didn't respond with words. He simply shifted his stance, his hands open and ready, his eyes never leaving his opponent. His face showed no fear, no doubt, only focused concentration. In the diplomatic viewing box, Lisa leaned toward a council member from the Ardani species. What's happening? Why is everyone so surprised? The Ardani's 6 eyes blinked rapidly. Your ambassador. He moves like a warrior, not a diplomat. And he knows Centauri weak points that most species don't. This is not what we expected. No, Lisa said with a small smile. I imagine it's not. Vrax attacked again, this time with more caution. He moved in a circle around John, looking for an opening. His clawed feet scraped against the stone floor. John turned with him, always facing the centauri, his stance balanced and ready. You cannot win by simply avoiding me, human, Vrax said. Eventually, you must attack. John remained silent, conserving his energy. He knew Centauri warriors relied on intimidation as much as strength. Vrax was used to opponents who were afraid, who made mistakes out of fear. John would not give him that advantage. Frustrated by John's patience, Vrax lunged forward again. This time, he feinted to the left before striking with his right arm, the sharp ridge aiming for John's throat. It was a move that had worked for him many times before. But John wasn't fooled. He ducked under the strike and moved inside Vrax's reach. His fist struck upward into the soft tissue beneath Vrax's jaw, one of the few places not protected by the hard exoskeleton. Vrax made a choking sound and staggered back. The crowd gasped. No one had ever landed such a clean hit on Vrax in previous challenges. Impossible, someone in the crowd whispered, but the sound carried in the quiet arena. How did he know that weakness? Vrax recovered quickly and roared in anger. He abandoned his careful approach and charged forward, both arms extended, using his full strength and speed. It was a frightening display of power that had overwhelmed many opponents before. But John had been waiting for this. As Vrax reached him, John dropped to the floor and rolled underneath the centaur's charge. As he came up behind Vrax, he struck 2 precise blows to the back of the centaur's knee joints. Vrax's legs buckled, and he fell hard to the stone floor. The impact echoed through the arena. Before he could rise, John was on him, applying pressure to specific points on the centaur's neck, another vulnerability few non-centauri knew about. How? Vrax gasped, his translator struggling to convert his strained sounds. How do you know our weaknesses? John leaned close, speaking quietly so only Vrax could hear. Because humans study everything that might threaten us. We prepare. We adapt. We survive. In the audience, Elder Zorax watched with growing understanding. Next to him sat a representative from the military council, General Crab of the Denibian Federation. The human fights like he studied centauri anatomy in detail, Crab observed. His moves are precise, targeting vulnerabilities. Yes, Zorax agreed. And notice his style. It's not one technique. He's combining different approaches as needed. Krav nodded. Adaptable. Efficient. He paused. Dangerous. On the arena floor, Vrax managed to break free from John's hold. He rolled away and stood up, moving more slowly now. His confidence was gone, replaced by confusion and a growing sense of concern. "What are you?" he asked. "I told you," John said, his voice carrying clearly now. "I'm a diplomat." The audience laughed nervously at this, breaking some of the tension. John used the moment to circle around, keeping Vrax off balance. Vrax attacked again, but his movements were becoming predictable. John evaded easily and struck back with targeted blows that seemed to affect the centaur more than they should have for a human. In the human viewing area, Lisa watched with new understanding. "He's been holding back all along," she said softly. "Not just today, but every day I've known him." A Meridian diplomat beside her looked confused. "What do you mean?" "Look at how he moves now," Lisa explained. "That grace, that control, that didn't come from diplomatic training. He's been a warrior all along, just hiding in plain sight." On the arena floor, John continued his methodical dismantling of the centaur's defenses. For every attack Vrax attempted, John had a counter. For every advantage the centauri had in strength or armor, John found a weakness to exploit. The message to the watching council was becoming clear. Humans understood combat in ways many of them had never considered. Sweat ran down John's back as the fight entered its 10th minute. His breathing remained controlled, but his muscles were beginning to burn from the effort. Across from him, Vrax was breathing heavily, his movements becoming slower and less coordinated. The centaur was used to quick victories. His previous challenges had ended in minutes, not drawn-out battles of endurance. But John had trained for long fights against superior enemies. During his military career, he had learned that survival often depended on outlasting an opponent who seemed unbeatable at first. "You are merely delaying the inevitable," Vrax said, though his translator couldn't hide the strain in his voice. "I will not tire before you do." John finally broke his silence. "Actually, "That's another thing you should know about humans," he said, circling slowly. "We evolved as persistence hunters. Before we had weapons, we chased prey until they collapsed from exhaustion. We can keep going long after most species would quit." As if to demonstrate, John suddenly increased his pace. He moved forward in a burst of speed, striking 3 times in rapid succession at different weak points in Vrax's armor. Each blow landed perfectly, causing the centaur to stagger back. In the stands, the council members watched with growing amazement. Most had dismissed humans as physically inferior to the dominant species of the galaxy. Now they were witnessing something unexpected. A human not just holding his own against a centauri warrior, but methodically taking him apart. "Notice how he conserved his energy early in the fight," General Krav said to Elder Zorax. "He let Vrax wear himself out with those powerful but inefficient attacks. A strategy that requires patience and foresight." Zorax replied thoughtfully, "Not just combat skill." On the arena floor, Vrax was growing desperate. He lunged forward with all his remaining strength, attempting to use his weight and momentum to overwhelm John. It was a reckless move born of frustration. John had been waiting for exactly this moment. As Vrax charged, John stepped to the side at the last possible second. But this time, instead of merely evading, he grabbed the centaur's arm and used the alien's own momentum to flip him completely over. The sound of Vrax's heavy body crashing to the stone floor echoed through the arena. Before the centaur could recover, John was on him, applying a precise hold that put pressure on a nerve cluster at the base of Vrax's skull. "This can end now," John said quietly. "You don't have to be injured further." Vrax struggled but could not break free. His exoskeleton, which had protected him in so many battles, was now working against him. Its rigidity limited his movement in John's expertly applied hold. "I will not surrender to a human," Vrax hissed. "This isn't about surrender," John replied, his voice still calm. "It's about recognizing reality. Humans don't seek conflict, Ambassador. We avoid it when possible. That's why we send diplomats like me. But make no mistake, we've survived and thrived as a species because when fighting becomes necessary, we excel at it." To emphasize his point, John increased the pressure slightly. Vrax made a sound that his translator didn't convert, a sound of pain. In the audience, the other Centauri delegates watched in shocked silence. Their species prided itself on its warrior traditions. To see one of their champions so thoroughly outmatched was inconceivable. Lisa turned to the Meridian diplomat beside her. "This is why Earth chose veterans as diplomats," she said. "They understand both war and peace. They value diplomacy because they know the alternative." "A wise approach," the Meridian acknowledged. "One that perhaps other species should consider." On the arena floor, John continued to hold Vrax in the submission position. "The choice is yours, Ambassador," he said. "We can end this now, return to the diplomatic table, and find a solution that works for both our peoples. Or we can continue, but I assure you, the outcome will not change." There was silence throughout the arena as everyone waited for Vrax's response. The entire council was witnessing a turning point, not just in this contest, but in their understanding of humanity's place among the stars. For what seemed like a long time, the arena remained completely silent. Vrax lay pinned beneath John, his breathing labored, his pride wounded far more deeply than his body. The watching council members waited, hardly daring to breathe. Finally, Vrax spoke. "I yield." The words seemed to cost him more than all the physical pain of the battle. John immediately released his hold and stepped back, allowing the centaur to rise. He extended his hand, a human gesture of respect after combat. Vrax stared at the offered hand, clearly unfamiliar with the custom. After a moment of hesitation, he reached out and grasped John's wrist in the centauri manner of acknowledging a worthy opponent. "The challenge is concluded," Elder Zorax announced, his voice carrying through the arena. "Ambassador Carter is the victor." The arena erupted in sound as hundreds of delegates began talking at once. Many were already sending messages to their homeworlds, reporting on what they had witnessed. The understanding of humanity's place in the galactic community had just shifted dramatically. John and Vrax were escorted to the medical station. Dr. Kevin Winters, the human medical officer on the station, examined both of them. He treated Vrax's injuries with the same care he showed John, applying regenerative gel to the Centaur's damaged joints. "You knew exactly where to strike," Vrax said as the doctor worked. "How? Our anatomy is not common knowledge. Earth studies all council species," John explained, "not just for potential conflict, but to better understand our neighbors. Knowledge is survival." Vrax was quiet for a moment. "I underestimated you. We all did." "That's not entirely accidental," John admitted. "Earth prefers to be underestimated rather than feared. Fear leads to unnecessary conflict." The next day, the council reconvened. John took his seat wearing his diplomatic uniform once more. The cut on his face nearly healed thanks to advanced medical treatment. The other delegates viewed him differently now. There were nods of respect, thoughtful glances, and a new attentiveness when he spoke. "Before we resume our discussion of the asteroid belt mining rights," Elder Zorax said, "Ambassador Vrax has requested to address the council." Vrax stood, his movements still stiff from the previous day's combat. "Yesterday I acted dishonorably," he began. "I allowed frustration to overwhelm wisdom. For this, I apologize to the council and to Ambassador Carter." He turned to face John directly. "I also wish to announce that the Centauri Imperium withdraws its objection to Earth's proposal. We accept their terms for limited mining operations with fair compensation." A murmur of surprise ran through the chamber. Such a complete reversal was unprecedented. Furthermore, Vrax continued, "The Centauri Imperium would like to propose a joint mining operation with Earth. We offer our advanced technology in exchange for learning from Earth's approach to challenges." When the session ended, John found Elder Zorax waiting for him in the corridor. "An impressive resolution, Ambassador," Zorax said. "You've accomplished more for Earth's position in one day than might have been possible in years of traditional negotiation." "That wasn't my intention," John replied. "I would have preferred to resolve this without the challenge." "Perhaps," Zorax said, "but the outcome serves all of us. The council needed to understand humans better. Now we do." As they walked together, Zorax asked carefully, "Are there many more like you on Earth? Warriors who serve as diplomats?" John smiled slightly. "Elder Zorax, every human is descended from ancestors who survived ice ages, predators, wars, and countless other threats. We're all capable of fighting when necessary. But most of us prefer to build rather than destroy. That's the real strength of humanity. Not that we can fight, but that we choose not to whenever possible." Later, as John prepared the report to send back to Earth, Lisa brought him the final agreement with the Centauri. "Protocol Omega worked perfectly," she said. "Earth will be pleased." John nodded. "It's not about intimidation. It's about respect. Now we can move forward as equals." Throughout the Galactic Council, a new understanding was spreading. Humans were not just another species of diplomats and traders. They were survivors, adaptable and formidable. And perhaps most importantly, they had chosen peace when they could have chosen dominance. That made them not just powerful, but wise.